Many parents are stuck in patterns, cycles of reactive, emotionally dysfunctional parenting that they've inherited from their childhood. The real truth is that until they've done that work, until they've gone through those different emotions and learned what they can do when they feel them, they are going to keep repeating those patterns. Most of us want to change. We want to be better for our kids. The question is not whether we want it. The question is, how are we going to actually achieve that goal? My guest today is Eli Harwood. She is known as the attachment nerd on social media, but she's also an incredibly gifted author who came out with a new book this week called How to Deal with Your Stuff So That Your Kids Don't Have to. It's an incredible resource for parents who are trying to cycle break, and she and I sat down to have a roughly 30-minute conversation about the book. In that conversation, we talk about why she wrote the book in the first place, how 19 years as a therapist has informed the perspectives that she brings in this book, why this book is not really structured like most books about healing yourself or parenting or secure attachment, the hardest parts of the book to write, and the one thing that she really wants every single parent to take away who is in the midst of raising kids and trying to break cycles. This is my conversation with Eli. I am so excited today to have Eli Harwood, one of my very good friends, but also, more importantly, the author of an amazing new book, How to Deal with Your So That Your Kids Don't Have to. I'm so glad that you have the book up behind you, because I searched this morning and I think a small little hand may have taken How to Deal with Your Stuff. I tend to be a listener. So I tend to listen to all of the books that you put out. And so I'm excited to talk about this. Eli, why did you write How to Deal with Your So That Your Kids Don't Have to?
I think one of the hardest parts of cycle breaking is you don't have the experience of a mature parent guiding you through the emotional terrain of your body and your life. And so you come into parenthood and you know for sure, I don't want to do what they did. That did not feel good. I don't want to do that. But the complexity of what our kids need from us and what has happened in our bodies in the past gets all mumble jumbled in that moment. And it's actually much harder. It's just easier said than done. It is much more challenging to be a secure parent and to give our kids a secure experience than it is to say we want to do that, or to say I'm not going to do what they did. So I wanted there to be, I'm calling it like a paper parent, like a little paper parent on the shelf that cycle breaking parents can take off that shelf when they are feeling a whole slew of different things. And to be able to be like, okay, what is it that's happening inside of me? How can I understand it? What can I do? And how can I become more emotionally mature? There's all these parents out there who read the book on, your parents were emotionally immature parents.
Adult children of emotionally immature parents.
Right. So you've read the book and you're like, yep, that's what I have. And I wanted to give a book to parents that was like, and this is how you become the emotionally mature parent. This is how you learn how to regulate and tolerate what you feel and understand what you feel so that your kids can rely on you. I also have spent the last 19 years helping people heal from insecure childhood dynamics with their parents. So I think just for my own need, it's like a need to put out in a book form. Please don't do these things. Please do these things instead. Because it's really been painful for me. I'm sure this is true of any therapist who's been doing this work as long as I have. It's painful to watch well-intentioned parents not know how to give their kids secure experiences and to muck it up with some of their emotional baggage that they don't even know is there half the time.
Yeah. What sticks out to me is this comment that I'm sure that you get all the time, which is, I see all this great advice, but I just feel like just makes me kind of feel overwhelmed and feel like a bad parent. Did you write the book with that in mind? Because I know that that's a big deal for you in your therapy clients.
Yeah, I mean, anything I write from the perspective of, I need this book. This is not a you're doing it wrong. Here's what needs to be fixed. I also really, really shy away from kind of catastrophic kind of views on the stuff. I'm a real hope junkie. I'm like, we can do this together. We can do this. It can get better and we can work towards it. So, if you're picking up this book and you're feeling anxious, I want you to read through that chapter on anxiety and go, okay, I can do this. This isn't so big and lofty. And also, I didn't fail hugely. And there are ways to repair. And I can learn this process of regulating my fear for the future, which is what I explain anxiety is. It's fear for the
Yeah.
future.
And,
Um,
so talk a little bit about how this book is structured. When I got it in the mail,
mhm,
I opened it
mhm,
and I was surprised because it
mhm,
doesn't really seem
mhm.
like a book that you and maybe I'm wrong about this, but that you read cover to cover. It
No,
feels more like a resource.
I call it a read it when you need it structure. And I also did this on purpose because I think if you're in the throes of active parenting and you're anything like me, your life is absolutely nuts. And so the time it takes to sit down and read, or even if you're listening to a book on Audible, which it's on Audible, you kind of need them to be in these little snippets and these little snapshots. And all of our brains are being trained to look for small snapshots because of social media and the way that we're engaging information in this time period that we're all in. So I also wanted it to be something that kind of matched that rhythm that we're all in right now. So you can pick up the book. So I made it alphabetical,
Hmm.
and there are 32 different topics in the book. And they are all things that I think are extremely common in the cycle breaking parent experience, in the parent experience in general, um, that many people find themselves experiencing without tools, without support. So you can open it up and you go, okay, how to deal with, oh, feeling rejected by my kids. Yeah, that's a thing I'm
Mm,
struggling with. Maybe your 2-year-old always wants mom, or they always want the other parent, or they always want the nanny. Even sometimes that happens for families. And so then I'm feeling rejected by my kid. How do I deal with this? Okay, I can just literally read that chapter. And I kept the chapters between like 4 and 6 pages. I think there's a couple that made it to like 8 pages. But I tried to keep it really short because I wanted it to be actionable. That
yeah.
I'm in this moment, I need help. Help me with this.
I think that that's so profound because I think, as you just named, there's so much going on for parents. And my struggle when I was writing punishment free parenting, and I imagine your struggle when you were writing Raising Securely Attached Kids,
Mhm.
was like, and actually, it's funny. I actually talked to your editor about this because
Oh,
I pitched my next book to your editor.
yes.
And one of the things that I talked to her about is like, you want to keep cutting out even when you have good stuff because it's for parents. And so
Mhm.
I really appreciate this structure. And parents don't have time. I really
Mhm.
appreciate the structure because you're really giving me 32 books,
Mm.
like 32 lessons that
Mhm.
I can, and there are going to be lessons in there that are not for me. I already have looked
Absolutely.
through it and
Yes.
I'm like, you know what? I don't actually struggle with that one.
Mhm.
But
That's
then,
kind of nice. It's
right.
like
It
it's like a
feels good.
checklist. You're like, "Oh, I'm gonna go through this." And, to anyone who looks through it and is like, "Oh crap, all 32 apply to me." Like,
Right.
don't be hard on yourself. But for the average person, you're gonna look
To be
through
clear,
there.
I think it was maybe 3 that didn't apply to me. I don't think I was sitting there going like, oh, look at this.
Check, 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 check.
I only need 3 of these 32 chapters.
No,
Like
but there
I
will be things that don't apply. And what a nice thing to kind of validate for you. I think a lot of parents will read through these things and go, "Does this apply to me?" And they'll read through the chapter and they'll go, "Oh, actually, I'm doing pretty good." And that's another thing I wanted to have happen for parents is
mm,
to be able to go, "You know what? I'm the problem here is not my how I'm dealing with this. The problem is a culture that tells me I need to deal with this perfectly, and I don't." And that is one of the chapters too. How to deal with the
yeah,
perfectionism habit, because I think
how
we're
to deal with
all dealing with that
perfection.
right now.
I got to get you back on the podcast someday to talk about my like hot take on therapy these days, which
Oh.
is that we're going to still be friends after this, I promise. Um which is that I think a lot of people are using therapy incorrectly.
Mm, go on.
And they're going to therapy and therapeutic environments to essentially just like live in dysfunction.
Mm,
Like they're there to just kind of rehash and talk about over and over and over, like that bad thing that my mom did, or that bad
Mm,
thing in myself that I don't like.
mm,
And they're not getting tools. And I think
mm,
about it kind of like, everybody should have a doctor that they go to when they
mhm,
need help.
mhm,
People
mhm,
should do annual physicals.
mhm,
People should get
mhm,
regular blood work and get their
mhm,
colonoscopies done, and
mhm,
get their breast exams done, and all those things like that can all be true.
mhm.
But if you're going to your doctor religiously for 40 years and not getting better, like, maybe you need to pause. And that is something that I don't see in this book. I see this book as like, no, these are tools that you can move through. And I
Mhm,
love what you talk about with earned secure attachment in your first book. I love what you talk about in this book, where it's like, I read the chapter on anxiety because that's
mm,
one of the ones that I struggle with. And it's
mm,
right at the beginning of the book too,
mhm,
right? So
mhm.
it was before I even realized what the book was. It might even be the first chapter. Is it the first chapter?
Does anxiety come before anger? A-N-G? No, anger comes before anxiety
Okay, so
in
I think I
alphabetical
think I
terms.
hit anger. I think I hit anger. Anger is another thing that I struggle with. So I probably hit those two first before realizing how the book was structured. I think
Mhm.
I just dove right in and
Yeah.
wanted to just, and I
Yeah.
just like, devour books in that way. Like I start skimming immediately,
Yeah.
and
I
then
love
I go, okay, if this is worth it, then I'll get it on Audible and listen to it
it.
when I'm like parenting. But when I got into that anxiety thing, I said, look, this is not like you have anxiety, you will have anxiety forever. This is like, no, here's how you work with your anxiety to move
Mhm,
through it. And
mhm,
I don't think, to be clear, I don't think that in the same way that I think that there's fundamentally broken systems within school for kids,
mhm,
I don't blame teachers for those
mhm,
fundamental broken
mhm.
systems. I don't blame therapists for the way in which people are misusing like therapy, or not misusing,
Sure.
but like not healing.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I just appreciated so greatly that
Mm.
this book is like, no, you want us to heal. Like
Mhm.
you actually don't,
Yes.
you want me to like have this book on my shelf
Mhm,
to go to when I need it. But
mhm.
then at some point, like, not need it anymore.
Yeah, I want you to learn it, right?
Right.
And I think this gets tricky, right? Because we obviously don't want to be kind of in that space that I think can be kind of arrogant of like, you're going to like evolve to this place where like you don't need anything
Mhm.
anymore. You're healed. However, on the flip side, I think what you're critiquing is this idea that people are perpetually healing. It's like, and my friend, I don't know if you know the outdoor therapist, Zach Hazlett, but he talks about this as like like what if you can hit a place where you're healed enough,
Right.
that's been my relationship to therapy. I'm actually back in therapy right now because I needed to be back in therapy around some trauma stuff. But I like in general, like I take year-long gaps, years
Right.
or two or more, when I'm like, okay, I'm in a place where I'm really am pretty regulated, secure in my body, in my nervous system, in my sense of self, my sense of worthiness. I'm going to live my life. Right.
Yeah.
And so that is always what I want for people. And like that therapy would be a tool and a resource. And if you are,
Yes.
I mean, there's so many variables with therapy. It's like, are
Right.
you in the with the right fit person? Does that person
Right.
have actual competency around what you need?
Right.
Philosophically, do they, there's so many pieces to that puzzle. Um, if someone's in therapy for years and years and years, that's not always a bad thing. Like that could
Sure.
be because they're actually doing really significant work and they have massive trauma. Their therapist is a great fit. It's
Oh, and
working.
they're moving through these things, right? Like we handled this
But
and now we're working on this.
transformation would be
And
the key there of like, is it getting better? Is it moving?
right.
And
Versus like I was my very first therapy session, we started working on this thing. I'm 25 years in.
yeah.
Basically every time we just talk about that.
Well, I mean, I
And
think what you're saying is like, is it just an emotional dumping ground, right? Are you just
exactly.
coming in and you are complaining about your life and you're not taking any ownership or agency to make changes around the things you
Right.
can? That
Right.
doesn't work for me as a therapist. I'm like, you're not a good match for me if that's what you want to do.
Right.
Because honestly, I'm just going to be annoyed at
No,
some point.
it's like and I know I think we throw around the word narcissist, but that's a kind of like a profoundly narcissistic thing to do,
Yes,
right? To be like,
correct.
I would like to pay you to
Yes,
listen to my problems
yes. And
and
make
not
me
do anything about it and just make me feel good about them.
and validate me about my stuckness and
Yes.
validate me that there is nothing that can be done, as
Right.
opposed to help me see my ability to move through this, help me see my ability to make changes. So yes, this book is definitely not a here's why nothing is your fault, nothing is your responsibility book.
I
this
love that.
this book is here's what these things are inside of you. Here are where some of those roots are, and here's how you can do it. And you know, what's powerful in my life is that I had a mom who dealt with her stuff. So
Mm.
when I was 9 years old, my sweet mama was on the brink of ending her life. And she had a voice in her head that said everyone would be better off without you.
Mm.
And it was a profoundly trauma-based voice. It came from lots of different, injuries in her childhood. And she, in the 80s, no, it was in the 90s. I say 82. I thought, yeah, it was the 90s at this point. In the 90s, she's so baller. She opened up the yellow pages and found a psychiatric hospital, called my dad and was like, you need to come home from work. I'm checking myself into the loony bin. That's what she said to him. And he was like,
Love it.
what? He didn't want that. He was not
Of course.
not in a supportive place. And she was like, I'm going. And she went for a week, and none of us were happy that she had gone, but we didn't understand what was really happening. And from that point forward, she set herself on a growth trajectory. And it wasn't like she went to the psychiatric hospital, she came back, bada bing, bada boom, she's an emotionally stable, emotionally mature parent. That is not what it was. I
Right.
have memories past that point that took a lot of therapy to work through still. But she never stopped growing. And she's like that today. I mean, probably about a year ago, she was going through something and I'm sitting with her. And she calls therapists her rent-a-friends, which is just very funny. She's very funny too. But
She's a wild one.
she is a wild one. But she was going through something. She goes, it's time to give my rent-a-friend a call. And I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, it is. It is. You're in your stuff again and you're swirling and your perceptual things are off and you need some help.
Right.
And so I had the benefit of that. I didn't have the benefit of growing up in a secure home. That isn't what I had, but I had the benefit of a parent who started doing their work and kept doing their work. And
And that
I
model's something different.
absolutely. It is why we have a good relationship. Like when my son was 2, my mom was living across the country and I was like, I need you closer. I want you closer. I want you around. And I think like had she never done all of that, I know the opposite would have been true. That it would have been like her going, why won't you come be closer to me? And me being like, because I don't want to be around you because you
Right.
stayed stuck in your stuff, which is how she felt about her mom. And
Sure.
so, I think it's never too late. It's a gift to ourselves and our kids to go, all right, what have I not taken ownership over that I can take ownership over and become more free about so that my kids can feel more regulated in my presence and so that I can enjoy my life more. I mean, this book is for your kids and it's not, because when you heal,
Mhm.
your life gets better as well as
And
your relationship with your kids.
and you can't give your kids something that you haven't done yourself, which is what
Yeah.
your mom was teaching you, right? Like,
Yeah.
had your mom just said, I want better for you, Eli, I want better for you, I want better for you, but I'm going to stay stuck.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
that actually isn't health.
Well, and she'll say that the like kind of, mm, I don't know if the word linchpin is the right word, but like the moment of turning towards those yellow
Tipping
pages,
point. Yeah.
tipping point. There you go. That's a much better metaphor. The tipping point of turning towards those yellow pages and getting into the hospital was she saw her mom stay in the situation she was in, which was with an abusive marriage, and complain about it and become bitter. And she was like, I don't
Mm.
want to be bitter like my mom. I want to change the situation. And she did. And it took her a while to leave the relationship with my dad. I love my dad, but he was never honestly, y'all, if my dad would read this book, I would fall over dead of a heart attack. Like he doesn't read my books, he doesn't watch my stuff. He's like, I don't get what all that is that you do. He does
I,
not do his
I'm pretty
work.
sure. I'm pretty sure that my mom has never read any of my books. My
Mm,
dad is. My dad is not on this earth.
I
So that.
know. So
So.
he's read them.
So he's. So he's definitely not reading them. But my yeah, I don't know that. But I think it's very hard too for them,
Oh,
right?
of course. But my mom reads my books. My mom reads my stuff, and my
But that's a
mom
lot
gives
of
me.
security. That's a
She
lot of
gives me
security.
because and I tell that I don't talk about my dad. Actually, I do talk about my dad a little bit in this book, but I normally don't talk about my dad that much because I'm like he can't handle that,
Right.
and so it's like out of an acceptance of that for him.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe someday after he passes, I'll write about it. But I
Yeah.
don't feel close to my dad like I feel to my mom, and I don't know if I could like put it down and say whose stuff harmed me worse
Sure.
their stuff harmed me pretty significantly, but her ability to acknowledge it and forgive herself and keep growing and to always see the next stage as available to her. It's like, well, I can still work on this. She had to have a conversation with one of my sisters recently where she drew some boundaries, and
Mm,
she like went to therapy, came back, drew some boundaries. Like, that's incredible. That's incredible.
yeah.
She's still growing, and I have so much respect for that, and I want to be that. And I hear your note on, like, we don't have to be like perpetually consuming healing
Right.
information in our lives.
Yeah.
So if
It's
you're
it,
if
it's
you're
a
listening and you're like, I've done my work and I feel really secure in myself, like, you just don't need my book. That's cool.
Well,
Enjoy.
I think you can still have the book. And I think that you can still look in there and go, like, tomorrow anxiety might become a problem.
Yeah.
Like, tomorrow anger might become a problem. And that's why it stays
Sure.
on the shelf. Like, this
Hmm.
isn't one that you need to read and chuck,
Yeah.
like go back to it,
Yeah.
but ultimately I think you're right.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, I have a good question for you. Hey, it's John. I hate to interrupt my own episode, but I have something really exciting to tell you about. I wrote a children's book, and it comes out in just a few short weeks. And this book is not like any other children's book you've ever read. It's actually built to help you in those moments when your kids are having really big emotions and nothing that you're saying is working. It's called Set My Feelings Free. And if you've ever used one of my emotional regulation tools or games with your kids, then this book is literally written for you. It's basically just a ready-made parenting brain hack. Each part of the book walks through a really common moment that your kid probably already experiences. Things like having to share, or being afraid of the dark at night, or being frustrated when somebody knocks down the tower that you were just working on. And then, buried inside the story, each child will use a simple and memorable science-backed regulation strategy to move through that feeling and come back to calm. Not by shutting down their feelings, not by ignoring their feelings, but by actually learning how to move through their feelings. And here's one of the many things that makes this book different and memorable. The whole book is set to the tune of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, because when your child is dysregulated, we know that they're not really in a place to process language. But rhythm and music can actually cut through their dysregulation, and so they can use these tools where normal tools don't work. So instead of trying to teach the tool in the middle of a meltdown, you're giving them something familiar that their brain already knows how to access. And if singing is just not your thing, you can totally just read it like a normal book too, but I recommend trying to sing it first. There's also a page in the back for you, parents, caregivers, grandparents, whatever, that breaks down exactly the neuroscience behind each of the 5 tools so that you can understand not only what they are, but also why and how they work. And one more thing. This book was illustrated by my wife, who is already an incredible artist, and this is her first published children's book. She poured her heart and soul into making every single page feel real and meaningful and something that you actually want to read. So, if you want something that doesn't just entertain your kid at bedtime, but actually helps them build the skills of handling their big emotions, check out Set My Feelings Free. The link to pre-order or order is already in the show notes. I'm back here with Eli talking about her book, How to Deal with Your Stuff so that your kids don't have to. But it's actually a book all about how to deal with individual like every chapter is an individual emotion or struggle or trial for parents.
Mm-hmm.
And my next question to you, it's like something I've been wanting to ask you for a long time. What was the hardest chapter to write for you?
Okay. Hardest meaning that it was the hardest for me to emotionally, or the hardest for me to actually just find the words because it's a complex thing to write about?
However you want to take that question.
Um I think, well, okay, so emotionally, I think the hardest chapter for me to write was the people pleasing chapter, because I made some bold choices to talk about some people that have hurt me in my life. And it is scary to do as an author. You're like, and I didn't name names. It wasn't like, and this person's name is, and you can find their address here. But there's just a little bit of like telling the truth about the harm that you've received from people is, I don't know, doesn't feel great. So that one was hard to write for that reason.
Is
Because,
it
and
because you struggle with people pleasing?
right. I mean, I'm a female. I grew up being conditioned to believe that the gift I bring people is making them feel comfortable around me, right? And so that like early gender conditioning, I think, is in most women, most females. But the long-term trauma stuff in my family led me to feel responsible for things I wasn't responsible for. I call it responsibility dysmorphia. I mentioned that in the
Mm,
book. My sense of what is mine and what, whether it should I? The answer is almost always yes. I probably should, I should. So it has taken me a long time to get that. So yes, people pleasing is probably the most challenging in that way. Um, Intellectually, the chapter on how to deal with feeling traumatized, I basically was like, how do I take and reduce these thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of pages and information on trauma and all of my years of working with trauma and put it into what will actually help someone who's feeling traumatized?
mm.
So that one I spent a lot of time on because I wanted it to hit clear and fast around a topic that is incredibly nuanced, and so many people have experiences around it. So that one I think I spent maybe the most amount of time on, being like, how do I make this make sense and use metaphors and ideas that really hit home with people so they know, okay, this is what I do next.
When you say traumatized, I
Mhm.
mean, I think a lot of people have different, like, that's not trauma, that's not trauma. How do you define that in the book? Are we talking capital T,
Mhm.
like assaults and,
Mhm.
PTSD,
Mhm.
witnessing war crimes, or are we
Mhm.
talking like, hey, there's trauma around every corner?
Well, I define trauma as any experience that creates a significant threat to your safety, to your belonging, or to your sense of dignity. And I think this is really important because it's about, what does the experience cultivate in your nervous system? One person's trauma is not another person's trauma. That you can be in a situation and experience something and feel like that wasn't traumatizing for me, and another person can be in that exact same situation and it activates significant trauma. And so that's about our histories, our identities, the privileges we hold and don't hold in the world. So to me, it's less about like, well, is X a trauma or not, and more about
Sure.
the context of a person in a situation. In the chapter, what I really talk about is, you're in a situation and it's activating your body's fight, flight, freeze, faint, fawn response, right? And so their trauma is divided up into three things. So there is the experience, the actual thing happening. Then there is the biological response your body has to that thing. And then there is the narrative or the story
Mm,
that gets formed around those two things. And so PTSD, and I have training in what's called CPT, cognitive processing therapy, but that's where I get some of these ideas around this. I'm also trained in EMDR. I have lots of different trauma training, but CPT looks at the event, the impact, and the story. And
mhm,
so, I think that's what I wanted to reduce it down for people, is that trauma is not just the thing that happened. It's the thing that
mm.
happened, then the things that happen inside of you, then the story that gets formed inside of you. And healing trauma is about being able to shift that story, release those sensations, and reclaim your sense of your dignity, your sense of your belonging, your sense of your safety. So, that was a bit of a chapter to write, to be like, how do I do this in 4 to 6 pages?
Yeah. One of the quotes that I have in my book, Punishment Free Parenting, from Gabor Mate, who I have a complicated relationship with depending on what he's talking about.
Oh yeah, no. We
Um,
could do a whole episode on
like
sometimes he talks about things that are out of his realm of competency.
right, and sometimes he talks about things that are like he's uniquely gifted to talk about in ways that no one else is.
Yeah.
Right? Like his if you ever want to hear somebody who really can talk well about Israel Palestine,
Mm, he does well.
like
He does that
like
well.
like he is a Holocaust survivor
Right.
and a trauma therapist. Like he is the guy in many ways to talk about that. But he has a quote that I think kind of perfectly encapsulates what you're saying, that I wrote in my book, which is trauma is not what happens to you. It's what happens inside of you as a result of what happens to you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that kind of highlights that.
Totally.
Eli, with the 4 minutes that we have remaining, if people, like, if you have a hope for the book, what is the one thing, like, if people heard this one thing, what do you want them to know? Like, whether it is to encourage them to read the book, or if they read the book, what is that one thing where you're like, this, it all comes down to this one thing. What is it?
You are capable of learning how to maturely tolerate what you feel, respond to what you feel, and give your kids the experience of a regulated parent. You can do this.
You are capable.
You're capable. You're capable. Yep.
But we need the tools. And that's why you wrote the encyclopedia, I think is what you have on the title, right? It's an encyclopedia of
for ditching your emotional baggage.
Ditching your emotional baggage. Eli, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We have to have you come back and talk more about your therapy work. We have to have you come back and talk about attachment. Obviously, we're going to do a live event on May 21st together in the Chicagoland area. If you're not on my email list yet, I will send out an email about that to all of the people across the globe, but I might limit it to people in the United States. Occasionally I will limit it to, like within 100 miles of me or something. Email server can do that. Okay. But we're going to do an event on May 21st where you can come and hear from Eli, local in the Chicagoland area. We don't know where it's going to be yet, but your book comes out, or your book is already out when this has been released. Your book is already out. So go right now to the show notes below. Find that link for how to deal with your stuff so that your kids don't have to. This is an excellent book. I highly recommend listening to it on Audible. Eli is a fantastic reader. You don't even have to put it on 2 times speed because it's just such a joy to listen to you talk about your thing.
Thank you,
Eli,
John.
we can find you at Attachment Nerd everywhere. And what's your website again?
Attachmentnerd.com.
Attachmentnerd.com. You are my favorite attachment person, and so I am so grateful that you are willing to be on the podcast, that you wrote such an amazing book, and a book that is already impacting me. I can't wait to dig more into it. I've only had it for a couple of days, but I will. I'm gonna dig through this thing. I know that I've had the digital for a while, but
but that's different. Doesn't count.
I unfortunately just did like the quick skim of that one. I love the physical book. It actually feels like such a good book.
Isn't it cool?
No offense to your first book, but having it in the hardcover, right? Like having the hardcover, like the physical feel, like it feels like a book that you want to have. It's not super heavy, like it's something that you can take around with you. But yeah, I absolutely love it. I love you.
I love you too.
So much for being on
Thank
the
you,
podcast,
friend.
And we will we'll catch you next time.
Okay.
Thank you for your time listening to the Whole Parent Podcast today. I hope you got something out of it. I have a couple quick favors to ask of you as we end the episode. The first one is to jump over on whatever podcast platform that you are listening to right now and rate this show 5 stars. You'll notice there are a lot of 5-star ratings on this show, whether that's on Spotify or Apple Music or Apple Podcasts. We have a ton of 5-star ratings, and it helps our podcast get out to more people than almost any other parenting podcast out there. And so it's a really quick thing that you can do if you have 15 or 20 seconds. And if you have an additional 30 seconds, I'd love to read a review from you. I read all the reviews that come through. If you particularly like one part of the podcast, or you like when I talk about something or whatever, imagine that you're writing that review directly to me. The second thing that you can do is go and send this episode to somebody in your life who you think could use it. Think about all the parents in your life. Think about your friends, your family members who could use a little bit of help parenting. It's vulnerable to share an episode of a parenting podcast with them. I get it. But imagine how much better your life is as a result of listening to this podcast, of following me on social media, of getting the emails that I send out. You can share that with someone else too. And so I encourage you, just go over, shoot them a quick text, share this episode with them, or share another episode that you feel like is particularly relevant to them. The last thing you can do is go down to the link, show notes at the bottom. And like I said, in the mid-roll, you can subscribe on Substack. It's $5 a month or $50 a year. I don't have that many people doing it. And yet the people who are doing it have made this possible. And so if you like this episode, if you like all of the episodes, if you want them to continue, the only way that I can keep making them is through donor support, free will donations to the podcast. Please, 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 as you're thinking about the end of this year, as you're thinking about your charitable giving, I know I'm not a 501c3. You can't write it off on your taxes, but if you'd like to give me a little gift to just say thank you for what you've done this year, the best way to do that is over on Substack. Again, $5 a month, $50 a year. It's not going to break the bank. It's probably less than you spend on coffee every week. Definitely less than you spend on coffee every week. Maybe less than you spend on almost anything, right? $5 a month is very, very small, but it goes a long way when it's multiplied by all of the different people who listen to the podcast and sending that over to me. I get all of that money. It's just my way of being able to produce the podcast, spend money on equipment, spend money on subscription fees, hosting fees for the podcast, all of that stuff, email server fees, all that. So if you're willing to do that, I would love it. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and I'll see you next time.